Listo. Ya dice que está grabando. Entonces, good evening, teacher. Leonardo.
Good evening.
My name is Diana Lizeth Ramos. I am bachelor student in foreign language with English emphasis. Today, I want to ask you some questions about the subject of language and culture. Yes?
Okay, that's an interesting topic.
Okay, teacher. The first question is, what do you think is the relationship between language and culture?
Okay, so the relation between language and culture is a very strong relation talking about languages. Why? Because I consider um, that language is a representation of culture and vice versa. Culture is also a representation of language. And I consider that the instrument we have to show our culture is the language. So, according to each country or according to each region, we have some particular cultural aspects, and the language has a big influence in that culture. We can speak the same language, right? For instance, in South America, most people speak Spanish, right? But according to the specific cultural characteristics, we have a specific ways of expressing our culture. So the connection is very strong, and we cannot separate language and culture when we talk about language learning.
Okay, teacher. The second question is, what is the influence of culture in the process of a foreign language process?
Okay, the influence of culture in the language learning process. Well, I consider that culture has a great influence because when we learn a language, we do not learn only words or expressions, or we do not learn only linguistic aspects of the language. When we learn a language, automatically we learn cultural aspects of the language. So, according to the language you learn, you are acquiring some specific characteristic of that culture. For instance, if you learn English, if you learn American English, normally you are influenced by American culture. Here in Colombia, specifically, we have that big influence because we like watching movies, and normally American movies. We like listening to music, and the music comes from the United States. So when we learn the language, we are not only learning a structure, we are learning culture, and the influence of that cultural aspects make that I learned a language, and at the same time I learned culture.
Okay, teacher. The uh, the question number 3 is, which culture expression do you know countries have through language?
Could you repeat the question?
Which culture expression do you know countries have through language?
Yes, I understand the question. Cultural expressions through language. We have music. Music is a cultural expression, right? That can be expressed through, in this case, talking about English, all connected with arts, right? Because we express so many cultural representations through language. And I consider that in this case, language is the means, right? Language is the means, language is the channel we use to express so many things, right? In this case, the most common example is music, right? We express language through music.
Mhm. Okay, teacher. The question number 4 is what why why do you think is it important to have an oral tradition in a country?
Oral tradition. I consider that the most important reason why it's important to have oral tradition is to maintain or to keep language and culture alive, right? Because along history, there can be so many books, there can be so many written papers that help to keep culture and language, but oral tradition is easier to communicate, and that can be evident when we listen to our grandparents and when we listen to our parents, that they are the first communicators and they are the first promoters of language. So when we listen to these people, we can learn both. We learn the language, right? And we learn also about culture. For instance, talking about more specifically, if we want to keep some traditions from Willa, right? We still listen to some people using some local language that is very particular only in Willa. So that is thanks to oral tradition. So it's a way to maintain, to keep, right, the language and to keep cultural traditions alive. That's the most important reason.
Yes, teacher. Uh, the question number 5 is what do you think? Do we teach language using culture or do we teach culture using language?
Okay, we use language to teach culture, or we teach culture using language. Okay, I consider that both are okay. Normally, when we think about a classroom, right, we do not only think about the English language, right? Because if I think about only the English language, I would only teach the linguistic part. So grammatical points, expressions, and vocabulary. That is only language. But teachers normally do not teach only the language. We use culture to teach the language. In that case, for instance, students can learn many things about a specific country through English. So here I teach culture using the language. So for instance, talking about some traditions in Thailand. In Thailand, they have some specific traditions that are so different from the traditions we have here in Colombia. So I can teach some cultural aspects of Thailand through English. So I normally do it in the classroom. Or I can teach culture through English. So first, I compare some cultural aspects from Colombia to cultural aspects of maybe the United States or England, and we have some comparisons. But normally, we use the two strategies. Use the language to teach culture, and we also use culture to teach the language. So the two processes are incorporated in the classroom.
Okay, teacher. Uh, the final question is number 6. Is do you take in account culture in the strategies you use in your English classes? Can you give me some examples?
Okay, this question is connected with the previous one, right? For example, when we talk about festivals and when we talk about holidays and traditions, it is important that students know the way other people celebrate, for example, Christmas, right? So first, um, we remember the different activities people do in Colombia, right? So that is connected with culture. And then we explore other countries celebrating the same holiday. So in that way, I incorporate culture in the language classroom. Other way of incorporating culture is um, when we talk about some values, for example, punctuality, respect, right? The importance of education in society, right? So it's not the same concept of education in Japan, the same concept of education in Africa, right? So we make some comparisons, right? And we study some cultural aspects according to the specific country. So that is easy to incorporate culture when we have different countries, right? With music, for instance, with music, because according to the country, they have some specific music they prefer. And in other countries, there is music that is not here in Colombia and that is connected with culture. So we have so many different strategies, right? We have so many cultural strategies to incorporate in the classroom because culture is connected with arts, with music, with education, with health. I mean, culture is in all aspects of human beings. So it's only to select a very interesting topic and make a contrast with Colombian culture.
Okay, teacher. No more question. Thank
Okay, that
you.
was a very good interview. I hope these questions help you to have a reflection for your studies and for the for the university.
Okay, teacher. Thank you.
Okay, Diana, no problem. Good night.